She cheated on me with someone from her office. I found out the hard way, not just about the affair, but how easily she lied and how little I seemed to matter to her anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I made a plan. I decided I'd get even. Not by yelling, not by crying, but by getting close to the one person who could completely ruin her world from the inside, her boss. And now, let's just say, she never saw it coming. Before I start, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy real-life revenge stories. You won't want to miss what happens next. My name's David. I'm 35, and I've been married to Amanda for almost 8 years. We met in college. The usual story, you know? She was majoring in marketing, I was in IT. She was the bubbly, ambitious type, always networking, always talking about big moves and climbing ladders. I was more of the quiet one, the guy who preferred staying behind the scenes, fixing systems and building solutions. Total opposites, but somehow it worked. Or at least I thought it did. We got married young, 27, both of us. We didn't have kids, though it was always next year, or once things settled down with work. She was career-focused, and I respected that. I had a stable job at a mid-sized tech firm, working remotely, so I took care of most of the home stuff. She worked in corporate sales, and started rising through the ranks fast. She'd come home late, tired, but always buzzing from meetings, travel, and new clients. I was proud of her, honestly. She was always talking about this one woman, Sophie, her regional director. Said she was tough, brilliant, a real powerhouse. Amanda admired her and wanted to impress her, constantly staying late to polish presentations or running to help on last-minute projects. At the time, I thought it was just dedication. Turns out, it was also a cover. Things started changing maybe a year before I found out. Amanda got secretive. She'd change her passwords more often. Her phone never left her hand. One night, she even took it into the shower with her. That's when I started getting suspicious. I asked her once, just gently, if everything was okay. She snapped at me, told me I was being paranoid. She said I was insecure and that I didn't understand what it was like to be a woman trying to succeed in a cutthroat field. I backed off. I didn't want to be that controlling husband. But something kept eating at me. The distance, the mood swings, the excuses. One night, I noticed her work laptop open in the office. She was in the shower again. I didn't go looking. I swear I didn't. But Outlook was open and a message preview popped up. It was from Jake, someone I'd never heard her mention. I clicked. I wish I hadn't. The messages weren't just flirty. They were explicit. They talked about nights they spent in hotel rooms, about what they did, how she couldn't wait to see him again. I froze. Then I copied everything. Screenshots, dates, threads. I closed everything before she came out, pretending nothing happened. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed time to think. I needed to do something more than just explode. Then I had a moment of clarity. Sophie, the boss she admired, the one Amanda said was divorced, always too busy for her own life. I remembered Amanda once saying Sophie was very private, very selective about who she trusted. I also remembered Amanda being weirdly jealous whenever Sophie complimented one of the other women at work. That's when I knew. I started following Sophie online. She had almost no presence, but I found her LinkedIn. I created a fake profile under a new name, a contractor working in tech consulting, smart, independent. I started posting thought pieces, resharing industry content, building connections. Eventually, she accepted my request. We started chatting, slow at first, professional, then a bit more personal. I never lied about my skills, but I didn't tell her my connection to Amanda. Not yet. It was a risk. But I was patient. I just needed to get close enough. Amanda was still seeing Jake. She thought I was clueless, but every step she took, I was already 2 ahead. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to destroy everything she built from the inside, and she wouldn't even realize it until it was far too late.
Sophie and I kept talking. She was cautious, clearly smart, and not someone who let people in easily. But over time, she seemed to respect my insights. We had long conversations about digital tools, company systems, automation, all the things Amanda never understood or cared to ask me about. I played it carefully, never too eager, always letting her think she was the one leading. I wasn't flirting, not really, but I made sure she knew I admired her work ethic and how she carried herself. After a month, she asked if I did any freelance advising. I said yes. We set up a call. I used a fake name, a fake LLC, everything clean. When we talked on Zoom, I kept the camera off, told her I had a cold, didn't want to be on video. She didn't push it. We spoke for an hour. She was sharp, commanding, but also clearly burnt out. I told her she was carrying too much on her own. She laughed and said no one else gave a damn about the bigger picture. That was the first crack. That's when I knew I could get in. Around that same time, Amanda had been complaining more than usual. She said Sophie was colder lately, less involved. I just listened and nodded. Amanda didn't realize the reason Sophie was acting different was because she was already messaging me, thinking about implementing my strategies, relying on my insight. I kept all the receipts, emails, notes, everything. I watched Amanda spiral without realizing she was spiraling. At home, she was getting distant, snappy. I acted the same. Normal. Polite. A little dull, even. The husband she could ignore. She didn't know I was already slipping into the walls of her world at work. A few weeks later, Sophie invited me to a company event, a quiet off-site dinner with a few department heads. It was informal, strategic, nothing major. I showed up dressed clean and basic. No fancy car, no flashy watch, just enough confidence to get in the room and not stand out. Amanda wasn't there. Different region, she said. I kept my name vague, just Dave. Sophie introduced me like a trusted outside advisor. I mostly listened, took a few notes, asked one very specific question that made one of the VPs look incompetent. Sophie looked impressed. The VP was her rival. She brought me in the next week for a private meeting. She wanted help restructuring a few of the project flows. I agreed. Then, 2 days later, I saw Amanda on the couch smiling at her phone. I asked what was funny. She said, just a meme from work. I said, cool, and went to the bedroom, where I checked the backup I'd set up weeks ago to mirror her messages through the cloud. It was from Jake. Still him. Still lying. Still cheating. That night, I laid in bed next to her, thinking how I used to love the way she breathed in her sleep. Now it felt like sharing air with a stranger. I couldn't even picture the version of her I married. All I saw now was someone cold, calculating, and careless, and it just made me more focused. I built a report for Sophie, a detailed proposal that included a restructure of several positions, including Amanda's. Nothing personal, just performance-based, based on external analytics and results she never really delivered on. I gave Sophie the data. She read it carefully, nodded, said she's been feeling like Amanda was slipping. I told her if she wanted to tighten the team, she needed to cut loose the dead weight. Sophie scheduled a department review. Amanda came home stressed out, saying they were reevaluating team efficiencies. I said that sounded intense and kissed her on the forehead. I didn't smile. I just watched. Over the next month, Sophie kept sending me new files, new requests. I became the invisible hand behind her decisions, the cleaner, the fixer. Amanda had no idea her own husband was architecting the system that was slowly pushing her out. She kept cheating, she kept lying, and I kept winning. Quietly, calculated, ruthless. One night, Sophie messaged me late, said she was stuck in her hotel room after a conference, tired of company politics and idiots who couldn't manage a basic rollout. I said I'd buy her a drink if I were there. She said she wished I was. That was the first time it changed. That's when I realized this wasn't just revenge anymore. Sophie respected me. She listened to me. She wanted me around. It was still a game, sure, but I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. And maybe, if I played this right, I could take everything Amanda thought was hers. The job, the influence, the control. And when I was done, I wouldn't need to yell. I'd just walk away with everything she lost and everything I rebuilt for myself.
I started to feel like I was living in two parallel timelines. In one, I was still Amanda's husband, making coffee, driving her to work occasionally, watching her pretend to be someone she wasn't. In the other, I was Sophie's closest strategic advisor, her sounding board, and soon enough, her most trusted confidant. She started inviting me to more private meetings, trusting me with internal memos, even letting me preview pitches before the board saw them. I made myself indispensable. Meanwhile, Amanda was losing grip. The department restructure I initiated through Sophie hit her hard. Her responsibilities were quietly shifted to newer, more aggressive hires. She was left with busy work. She complained at home, but not directly to me. Just vague frustration like, it's like no one sees the value of what I do anymore. I nodded and mumbled things like, maybe they're just moving in a new direction. She didn't suspect a thing. Jake, apparently, had started backing off, too. I caught one of their messages where she asked if they could meet for lunch, and he ghosted her for a day. Then he said something like, "It's getting complicated." That was satisfying to read. Not because I cared about the emotional part, that was long gone, but because I wanted her to feel what I had felt when I first found out. I wanted her to feel replaceable, insignificant. And it was working. She started staying home more. Less makeup, more silence. She was pulling away, slowly unraveling, while still not understanding why. Sophie, on the other hand, was rising fast. I made her job easier, and she looked stronger because of it. We started having late-night calls, long ones. Not romantic, not yet, just deep, engaging conversations about life, ambition, disappointment. She said she had been married once, years ago, divorced, no kids. She asked about Amanda, about what we had. I lied and said we were drifting apart. She didn't press. That weekend, Sophie invited me to her lake house. Said it was just a break from the stress. She needed someone around who wasn't an idiot. I said I'd go. Told Amanda I had to visit my brother for a quick side job. She didn't question it. I packed light. The lake house was beautiful, quiet, expensive, understated. Sophie greeted me in jeans and a loose hoodie, no makeup, hair tied back. She looked different like that. Calmer, even. We spent most of the night on the porch, talking, sipping wine, watching the dark water ripple. At one point she said, "I know you're hiding something." I froze for half a second. She looked me in the eye and said, "You've got that look, like a man with a shadow following him." I could have denied it, but I didn't. I just said, "Maybe I do." That was enough. She didn't push, just said, "I don't care what it is, as long as you don't lie to me." That night, she kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't fire. It was quiet, slow, intentional. Like two people choosing not to run from their pasts anymore. We didn't sleep together. She just laid next to me and fell asleep with her hand resting on mine. I hadn't felt human in so long. I don't even know if I deserved that moment, but I let it happen. The next morning, I cooked breakfast. She smiled like she hadn't smiled all year. And when I left, she kissed me again. Amanda called later that day, asked when I'd be back. Her voice was hollow, not angry, not warm, just empty. I told her I'd be home the next morning. That night, I checked her phone again. Jake had sent one final message. "This isn't working. You should focus on your marriage." She never replied. She just stared at the message, screenshot it, then deleted the entire thread. That told me everything. She was spiraling, and she was alone in it. I had pulled the string so carefully that she never saw the walls closing in. She thought it was life, circumstance, maybe karma, but it was me, all of it. I had become the storm she couldn't see. And the best part was, Sophie didn't know the full story either. To her, I was just the man who helped her rise, the one who showed up when others failed. But to Amanda, I was the ghost of every mistake she made. She just hadn't figured it out yet. But soon, she would. Very soon.
The final phase didn't need force. It just needed time and silence. Amanda was unraveling from the inside, and no one came to stop it. Her calls became shorter, her routines messier, and she barely talked to me anymore unless it was logistics. She started skipping dinners, staying in her office longer, and muttering things under her breath like she was talking to herself. She asked me one night if I thought she was being targeted at work. I kept my voice soft. I said, "Why would anyone target you?" And she stared at me like she couldn't answer that question honestly. The fear was starting to seep in. She'd been confident for so long, floating on ego and validation, but now she didn't even know which direction her career was going, or why the people who once admired her barely made eye contact. Sophie had slowly been moving her out of major project chains, one decision at a time, without ever saying her name. Amanda didn't even get an invite to the last board meeting, the one where I sat quietly at Sophie's side and helped finalize a proposal for a new leadership initiative that would render Amanda's role obsolete. I didn't suggest it. I didn't have to. The data I provided did it for me. That night, Sophie and I stayed in the office late. She poured whiskey, leaned back in her chair, and asked me if I'd ever been truly betrayed. I stared at her for a long second and said, "Yeah, but I'm okay with it now." She said nothing, just nodded and touched my hand across the table, like she understood more than she was letting on. Back home, Amanda was drunk. She didn't say it out loud, but I could see it. The way her eyes moved slow, how she was gripping her phone like it had betrayed her too. I sat on the couch and watched TV until she finally blurted out, "Do you think I'm a good person?" I paused the show, looked her in the eye, said, "I think you used to be." She didn't respond, she just went to bed. I stayed up that night, rereading the last batch of reports Sophie sent me. They were dry, clinical, efficient, just like her. She was pushing to have Amanda's team absorbed by another manager, claiming inefficiency and duplication of efforts. Amanda would either accept a demotion or leave. That was her choice. And Sophie was giving me full say on how the transition should be handled. I had become the final step in Amanda's professional relevance. The irony didn't escape me. She wanted excitement, freedom, escape. She'd thrown her life into chaos chasing some cheap fantasy with a man who couldn't even answer her texts anymore. And now here I was, shaping the very narrative that would erase her from the only place where she still had some control. I scheduled a meeting. Anonymous calendar invite. Internal audit consultation. Amanda took the bait. She showed up to the boardroom at noon, folder in hand, nerves on edge. She didn't recognize me at first. I wasn't in a suit. I'd changed my grooming, dropped the glasses, and grew a short beard. When I walked in, she looked confused, almost offensive. "Can I help you?" she asked. I smiled politely. "Yeah, I think we need to talk about your department." Her face went pale, the silence dragged. "Wait, what is this?" I pulled out the file, handed it to her. "Just a review, your numbers, your leadership metrics. Sophie asked me to take a look months ago. I've been working with her ever since." Her hand shook as she opened the folder. She read the charts, the comparisons, the project gaps, the inefficiencies, all real, all factual, all traceable. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I sat across from her, calm, measured. "You weren't supposed to know it was me, but I figured it was time." Her voice cracked. "You did this?" I didn't flinch. "You did this. You just didn't think it would catch up to you." She stood up, breathing shallow, eyes wide. "Is this revenge? You're seriously doing this over—" I cut her off. "Over the year you spent lying to me? Over the man you risked everything for and now can't even face you? Over how you made me feel like I didn't matter in my own home?" I leaned forward. "No, this isn't revenge. This is consequence." She didn't sit back down. She just left. Quiet. Broken. No yelling, no fight. Just silence. Sophie called me later that evening. Said Amanda officially resigned. No confrontation. Just a typed letter and a locked office. She asked me if I felt bad. I told her the truth. No, I just feel done. That weekend, Sophie invited me to the lake again. This time, I didn't bring excuses. I brought my real name. I told her the whole story, not the details. Not about Jake or the phone backups, just the core of it. What Amanda did, what I did in return, what I had to become to survive it. She listened. Quietly. Then she said, I don't care what you did. I care who you are now. That was the moment I realized I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was rebuilding. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't a background character in someone else's mess. I was free, clean, and absolutely in control.
Amanda moved out the next week. She didn't fight it, didn't scream or cry or beg, just packed her things like someone being evicted by life itself. I stood by the door and watched her struggle to lift boxes alone. I didn't offer to help, not out of cruelty, out of clarity. She'd built this wall between us brick by brick, and now she was the one carrying the pieces out. When she finally paused, she looked at me like maybe I would say something kind, some last olive branch. But there was nothing left to say. We weren't two people in a marriage anymore. We were just evidence of a failed experiment. The divorce was fast, almost mechanical. She didn't ask for anything, and I didn't give her any reason to. There were no lawyers shouting in courtrooms, no dragged-out mediations, just a few signatures, a notary stamp, and 20 minutes in silence at opposite ends of a dull office table. When the clerk handed us the final papers, she hesitated for a moment, holding the edge like she was about to speak. But instead, she just turned and walked out. I didn't follow. I didn't even watch her go. After that, my life didn't instantly improve, but it became mine again. The quiet in the house was different now. It wasn't sad. It was peaceful. I could cook when I wanted, leave the lights on, sleep without wondering where she was or who she was texting. For the first time in years, my time belonged to me. Sophie and I didn't rush into anything. She wasn't a replacement or a rebound. We started slowly. Dinners that weren't about strategy, walks where no one talked about work. She came over one night and asked if I missed Amanda. I thought about it for a long second and said, I miss who she was before she stopped loving me. That was the last time we ever mentioned her. Months passed. Sophie offered me a permanent role in the executive team. I took it. Not because of her. I earned it. Every graph, every audit, every late night spent learning the language of her world. I belonged there. Amanda didn't. That reality was still sinking in, even for me. One night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was her. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, because I had no interest in opening a door that I'd already walked through and locked behind me. She had her shot. She picked her path. And I picked mine. A better one. A stronger one. Jake? He was fired 3 weeks after Amanda resigned. Not for cheating or ethics violations, for being incompetent. I never said a word about what I knew. I didn't need to. Karma doesn't ask for permission when it moves. It just does. Some weekends now, I drive out to the lake with Sophie. No aliases, secrets, just us. We sit on the dock, drink wine, and talk about nothing important. She still doesn't know all the details of what happened, and I don't plan to tell her. She doesn't need to know the full weight of what I carried, what I dismantled, what I became. She only needs to know the man sitting next to her isn't bitter or broken. He's just done with pretending everything is okay when it's not. If you're listening to this and expecting a message about forgiveness, you won't find it here. This isn't that kind of story. This is a story about consequences, about what happens when someone pushes a quiet man too far and he decides to stop being quiet. Amanda thought she could control the narrative, thought I was weak, thought I'd fade into the background. But in the end, she didn't just lose me, she lost everything. I didn't burn her world down, I just let her light the match and walk away. And when the smoke cleared, I was still standing, alone, stronger, and finally free.